Fraser?
We're doomed, doomed. I can't hear a word he's saying. He's mumbling, he's mumbling. You're not listening to me, boy.
Shut up!
John says senile.
What did you do that for, that hurt?
I do think you're being very heartless, Mr. Fraser.
Yeah, come off it,
Taffy, that is a bit strong.
You're muddling. Can you leave him his senses? Special duties. Ah!
I do mind.
That nasty little bit of film shows me, as thousands of people know me best, as a cantankerous, ill-mannered, ugly, horrible Scotsman, the kind of man you'd run a mile from.
There was a very close match between John Laurie and Fraser, and I think he knew it.
These dear ignorant folk think that is me.
He was like the character he played. He was quite scornful and very Scottish.
The damned idiots. As you see for yourselves, here is a man of grace and culture.
Both of them were rather proud, sometimes rather arrogant characters. They like to remind you of what they'd done and who they were.
After a great education at Dumfries Academy, which I earned through my own hard labours, being a student of history and a man of superior intellect, 6 solid years I spent there, which means that I'm far better educated than most of you. I had to speak to the manager about it from an intellectual point of view, sir. You understand?
Yeah.
He was also quite happy to play up to an English stereotype of the mean Scotsman.
And what happened?
I got my 1 and 6 back. I'm not paying the sliced rate for a lot of crumbs.
Well, you can have the lot for 6p.
Done. You've ruined it, that hat cost me 8 and 6 in 1911.
And it's time you had a new one.
I think John Laurie was another suggestion from Michael Mills. He said we should have a Scotsman in the show.
Because every town in the south of England has a rather stroppy Scotsman. And they're either lawyers or solicitors, and they form a Caledonian society. There's only 2 or 3 of them, and they look down on the English with great contempt.
I've had an invitation from Major General Menzies.
Menzies.
What did you say, Fraser?
We pronounce it Menzies, sir.
Do you?
So we had a Scotsman.
It was so much better when he became the Undertaker, because we introduced that slowly. He was sort of, as a hobby, making the odd coffin. And anyway, it developed into him being the Undertaker in the end.
And one day, Michael Mills said to David and me, he said, I've cast John Laurie. Now, John Laurie, one of my heroes.
Oh, I didn't see that fella. Would you believe it? That simple, innocent, virginal face is me. It was a horrible war.
Of all the actors in Dad's Army, John Laurie was probably the one who had the most claim to be able to draw from his own experience, and he was in the Home Guard himself for quite a long time.
But of course, he had enormous experience, way back to 39 Steps with Robert Donat in the early 30s. Probably the most experienced actor we had.
To be quite true, I've made 100 films and more.
He'd worked with some of the greats, the likes of Hitchcock, the likes of Michael Powell.
80 of them, let me put it that way, at a very close estimate, I never want to see again.
And I remember him in films with Will Hay, Ghost of St. Michael's, where he was a butler, and he says, if you hear any moaning during the night, this was in this old castle, take no notice, it'll just be the wind and the souls of the drowned sailors. Now, of course, it was a gift for David and I.
Many, many years ago, on the furthest point of the Western Isles, 2 brave lighthouse keepers were marooned. Their stair had collapsed, and they were cut off, just like us. They decided there was only one way to get down.
And what was that?
To dismantle the lighthouse, brick by brick. Don't forget, they'd been up there for so long that, well, they'd both gone quite mad. Did you hear what I said, Captain Mannering? Mad.
And I used to say to him, you're mad, John. He said, mad? Do you say I was mad, laddie?
Mad? Mad?
But I loved him because he'd say anything to anybody.
I think you're a woolly-minded old ditherer.
Woolly-minded old ditherer.
Well, at least your hearing's sound.
I remember him saying to me, "This Arthur Lowe, very fine actor, very, very versatile. He knows the business of being an actor all the way from A to B."
That's how I feel. And I had to come in and tell you so to your face. No offence intended, you understand.
He didn't care what he said to anybody, but he was very funny. I loved him.
He thought he was a good actor himself. In fact, he thought he was a great actor. He thought he was one of the greatest Hamlets that ever were. I can't imagine him playing it.
You know, I look at that and I can see that was a damn good Hamlet. Still, I could look at that a long time, you know. I like it. Anyway, I returned to the Vic, this time as a leading man, playing Hamlet in its entirety. There's not many actors can say that. And Macbeth, plus a lot of other parts.
He was sufficiently an actor of the theatre to know that when he was doing things like You're Doomed, he knew that he was going to get an audience reaction.
We're doomed.
No, be quiet, Fraser.
We're entombed. Entombed. We're marooned. Marooned.
He was a pessimist who was quite happy without any sense of embarrassment to ignore that fact when things went well.
John Norrie's character started to develop because of what he had said at the beginning of rehearsals. This is all rubbish. It's all rubbish. It'll never work. And then when it started to work, he did actually say, of course, I had no doubt at all, great success. So that was brought into things. So when Mannering was onto some plan or other, and he would say, the man's a fool, he's a fool, he'll come a cropper.
You're a bigger fool than I thought.
Are you absolutely sure you're doing the right things?
And then he would be the one who'd say, "I never doubted you for a minute." And so that was taken straight from Laurie and put into Fraser.
I never doubted you could do it, so never for a moment, never for a single moment.
He hated anyone referring to his age or thinking he was old. And he and Arnold Ridley used to have a certain amount of competition between them over that. The minute he saw Arnold Ridley, who needed to sit down quite often because his legs were still riddled with shrapnel.
The silly old fool's in a deep coma.
As soon as he saw him relax or sit down, he'd grab anything heavy and go running past him going, "Don't you worry, laddie, you just relax down there." Start acting like he was 20 years younger.
But he wasn't cruel, John. He just loved having a dig at people.
I'm an old blatherskite, Lawson. I know that, and so do you. But I promise you, nobody'll ever hear a word about this from me.
Thank you, Fraser. I won't forget that.
Before I was 3.5 years old, my father died. A year before he died, he took an extraordinary step for him. He decided to leave the mill and open a wee shop at the other end of Dumfries, in one of its nicer squares. We moved house 4 times, and yet we were always in sight of that Burns's statue. So he and I, well, I can say with great fairness that we're like that, Robbie Burns and me. Oh, my love's like a reed rose that's newly sprung in June. My love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny lass, as deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry.
One little thing. He said, you know, I've played at the Old Vic, played with Olivier, Richardson, all of them. I've played some great parts. My Macbeth was considered to be the finest, and I'm also considering to be the finest English verse speaker in the world. Not given to modesty, but I tell you something, James. I have to wait till the age of 73 to become famous, appearing in this crap.
I enjoyed Dad's Army. I miss it terribly. It was, to me, the finest kind of pension an old man could have. Because I was busy, but not too busy. I was being well paid but not too well paid so it made me ashamed. You know, it was just right. I liked it very, very much.